Welcome to Chaotic Builds. I'm Corey. I've had my Shapeoko 5 for a little bit over a year, and I felt it was time to get VCarve Pro. If you're like me, you've gotten quite a few bits from different manufacturers, and what this meant to me was that the tool number was useless in Carbide Motion. Yes, I could put the tool number on each of the bits packages, but wouldn't it be much easier if Carbide Motion could show you the tool name instead? Well, it can, with the right post processor and a little bit of editing. Yeah, pun intended. What I will show you is what I see the problem is in Carbide Motion, where to get a post processor, how to modify and install it, and what some of the caveats are. Let's get to it.
Well, now that we're on my desktop, let's talk about what we're trying to do. We are trying to use VCarve Pro and a Shapeoko with a bit setter, and let me know which bit needs to be changed when you're doing multi-tools, right? So in Carbide Motion, we're probably all familiar with this. It was a best practice to put our tool in the path name, in the toolpath name, which helped us with Carbide Motion. So when we would open Carbide Motion and we'd open a file, we'd look at it, make sure it's the right one, and we'd start the job, and it would let us know what the toolpath was, and because we named it, we could see it, and if it was in the way, we could move this out of the way. Let's stop that so I don't start carving something. Well, that's not very helpful when you come over to VCarve, right? In VCarve, the default post processor in order to use the Shapeoko is the Carbide Motion post processor. And I'm just going to pull up a file real quick. Let's jump over. Let's look at our post processor options. And you got Carbide Motion, automatic tool change, inches or millimeters. Well, what those come up and show, and I've already saved a file to make it a little bit easier, okay, is all right, so let's start the job. Yes, that's because I stopped it. And starts off with this, and then our status gives us this lovely number. And from what I understand, this is the build version of the post processor. All right, let's stop that. So what we want to do is we want it to show us what the tool name is. Okay? Well, in order to do that, we need to get a post processor that we can edit. And I found one, and Neil Ferrari, hopefully I pronounced the name correctly, has this one. I will share the links for everything in the description. And what we want to do is we want to download the zip file, save it, and it's going to go into our downloads folder. Okay. So now I've got this, and I'm going to right click. I like to use 7-zip. You can use extract all for Windows. And let's find the folder. There it is. Okay, so we've extracted the VCarve post processors master. Inside here, we're interested in the Gerbil tool change. And there's multiple files, but the ones we care about are the Shapeoko inch and millimeter. TC stands for tool change. Well, what we want to do is we want to add a status before every tool change. And the way we do that is through this post processor. And to know what we're supposed to change, we've got a post-processor editing, advanced post-processor editing document from Vectric. And if we scroll down, we're going to look for the variables. Feel free to read through all of this. It's very interesting stuff if you're interested in this sort of thing. But let's get to the meat of this. We want to have we need the tool name variable so we can add it to our post-processor. So this is the variable name, tool underscore name, but what we're going to be using is the square brace, open square brace, tool name, all one word, close square brace. So let's go back to our post processor file, okay? I have my Carbide Motion set in millimeters. If you have yours set in inches, you would want to modify the inch one. But I'm going to open this in my notepad editor. Okay. And let's go to the top. Now, this right here is the name that you're going to see in the drop down as a post-processor choice in VCarve. You can change this to be whatever you want. I leave it as the default. Now, a tool change, a G-code tool change command is M6. Okay? And if we search for them, we should find 3 in here. So that was the first one up here. Then this is the second one. And the next one's going to loop around, come back up to the top. So what we want to do is right before the M6 in this section, we want to open a quote. We want to do a parentheses because anything in parentheses will display on the status line of Carbide Motion. And the variable name, I'm just going to copy it. And let's go back here. And then I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to close the parentheses and close the quotes. Copy and paste is your friend, so I am going to copy those 2 lines. And then I'm going to come down to this other, right before the M6 line, and now I'm going to paste. Okay, so I've put tool name before the M6 here, and tool name before the M6 here. And there are no other M6s anywhere in the file. So now we need to save this, and it is saved. Let's minimize some of this stuff. So we just modified this, and it puts the current date there. If you did inch, yours would be an inch. Well, where do we put this? How can we use this? Let's go back into VCarve, and if you come to File and Open Application Data folder. The folder we care about is this My Post P. Any custom post processors go in this folder. So let's open that folder, and I kind of move this over here. Let's come back down here to the file that we modified. And I'm going to copy and paste it over here. You can move it over there. You can, whatever you want to do. I like to have a copy of it. So I copied it over here. That way in my downloads folder, I still have the original one that I modified. Okay. So now we have to come into VCarve and exit, because every time it loads, it processes these folders. And at this point, it didn't know that it was there. So let's come back into VCarve. All right. Let's reload our file. And now we have to add it to VCarve. So let's go over to our toolpaths, save toolpath, and no post processor selected. Go to add post processors, and what we care about down here is the associated post processor. This should be the machine that you have configured over here. So if you hit the plus, and any custom ones that you put in that My Post P folder will show up at the top. So I'm going to select this one. I like to apply and click OK. And now it shows up here. Okay, so now you have the one that has a modification for the tool name. So when you look at your file, look at your toolpath, whatever tools are in there for every tool change, since you told it before the M6, you put that line in there, it will display it in Carbide Motion. Now, there is a slight problem with the default tools. Okay, a lot of the default tools, let me scroll over, already have parentheses. Well, that kind of messes up the post-processor. So what I do is I come into a tool that I use, or the tool that I'm selecting, and I edit. I click this little button, and I take out the parentheses, and I swap them out for square braces. You can just remove them all together, whichever you want. But once you've made that change, you apply the change, and then you select that tool. I don't want to change anything, so I'm not going to, because that'll mess up my feeds and speeds here that I've already got set for this tool. Now, let's say you forgot to do that before you brought it in. Well, you can do it here in the edit for this one. It'll only be for this particular file. So this particular charcuterie board and cracker tray file that I've got, that's the only place it's going to be. The next time I go to choose this from the tool database, it'll have the parentheses in there, and that can cause a problem. So now I am going to, I've already calculated these, but let's do it again. Now when I save the file, right, so I like to do for my Shapeoko, because I do have the bit setter, visible toolpaths to one file. And if I'm doing a double-sided job like this particular one is, I add the side to the tool name. But you can see the different tools that are in here, right? And that's because I've got these selected. If I didn't have all these selected, you'd only see which path is selected. So then you click Save Toolpaths. Oh, it didn't hold that. Okay, let's choose Shapeoko. Save the toolpath. Okay. And with tool name. Okay. And let's save that. So now when we go over to Carbide Motion and we load the file, we're going to do with tool name. I like to look at these, make sure it's the right file. When I start my job, this is just because I stopped those other jobs. I'm going to continue. And when I click start, my status now has the tool name in it. And you notice it has the square braces. So let's stop that. Now, what happens if you forget? Okay, and you've saved your G code, and it and it has the parentheses in the tool name. You forget. Well, how do you know that? Well, when you go to load the file, and I've already saved one that has it in it, and we'll go into the file and I'll show you where that's at. But I go to open it, and it says it has errors. It has unknown character. Well, that's because you're nesting parentheses, because your tool name has parentheses, and in your post processor you're wrapping it in parentheses, so it didn't know what to do. So let's take a quick look. Let's take a quick look at that file. Let's find it. Post-processing test, bad name, bring it in. So you want to search for your M6s. So let's find the next one. Let's start at the top. Let's find the next one, the top one. Okay, that one's fine. This one's fine. Ah, there it is. All right, so you can either edit it right here and change it to square braces if you wanted to, and then save the file and then reopen it in Carbide Motion. But so this doesn't happen to you next time, I like to go back and I like to edit the tool name, because if you're going to use that tool from over and over, you don't want this to happen every time. So just go into your database and make the change. Now you can come into the tool database, find your tool, make all the changes you want, like this surfacing end mill. Actually, I have this surfacing end mill, so let's go ahead and edit it. Okay, so I am going to backspace square brace, and I'm going to arrow over, backspace, open square brace. Okay, click OK. I'm going to apply, and now if I choose it in one of my tool paths, it will have the square braces in it. So what I like to do is I like to go through and update the ones that I already have. I like to put square braces on them. Okay, that way I don't end up with a problem when I'm actually trying to get something done.
Well, hopefully you found that helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get this channel up and going, and every little bit helps. The steps we covered were how the default VCarve postprocessor works for Carbide Motion, where to find the editable postprocessor, how to make the changes, how and where to install the new postprocessor, and the caveats regarding the parentheses in the tool names. The links for the postprocessor and the advanced postprocessor editing documentation are in the video description. Thank you for taking the time to visit the Chaotic Builds workshop. We'll see you next time where I'm working on a 4-sided carve in VCarve Pro. Can't wait to see you there.